Welcome everyone to the 5th Annual Athens Wrestling Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Established in 2014 by the Athens Youth Wrestling Club, the Athens Wrestling Hall of Fame is dedicated to recognizing and honoring individuals who have made significant contributions to the Athens wrestling program since Coach Jerry Wagner started the program in 1962. These individuals inspire our young athletes to achieve greatness of their own through hard work and dedication. It is our goal to continue the great wrestling tradition, community support, and to preserve the legacy of those who have done great things for Athens wrestling. At this time, I would like to invite Ryan Frame up for a bio of Brad Ellenbecker.
Welcome everybody. Tonight we're here to honor one of Athens wrestling legends in Brad Ellenbecker. Brad was Marawood Conference's first four-time conference wrestling champion in 1977 to 1980 high school wrestling career, winning conference at weights 105, 112, 126, and 132 pounds. Brad qualified for the WIAA State Wrestling Tournament his sophomore year at 112 pounds, placed third at state his senior year at 132 pounds, and only had a few losses his entire high school wrestling career. I remember Brad's brother Jeff telling me years ago that Brad only had 4 losses his entire high school wrestling career. So knowing Jeff, this was probably more like 7 or 8 losses. But either way,
3 losses only.
But either way, very impressive. In 1977, Athens also won the conference team championship and also the following 19 consecutive conference championship titles. It is safe to say that Brad and the whole 1977 team built the foundation for future generations of wrestling success in Athens. After high school, Brad went on to wrestle for UW Stevens Point. Aside from Brad's successful wrestling career, Brad has been a lifelong supporter of the Athens wrestling programs, shares many fond memories he had over his wrestling career, and is well known for his inspiring motivational speeches and messages. Following voting for this year's Hall of Fame inductee, I asked Brad's nephew Adam if he or anyone in his family would be interested in giving a short speech during the ceremony. And Adam said that he would, but knowing Brad would talk long enough for all of us. And the dual meet starts at 7. Alternatively, Brad's longtime friend and wrestling teammate, Barry Schmidt, requested to speak at today's ceremony, so I'll hand the microphone off to Barry.
Thank you, and good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Speak louder.
Okay. This is going to be a tough speech because me and Brad get together, we usually laugh quite a bit, so I hope I can keep a straight face through most of this. Again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Barry Schmidt, and I graduated from Athens High School in 1979, one year before Brad. I'm currently the superintendent and high school principal for the Independent School District, and I'm in my 4th year of that position. Before taking that position, I was head wrestling coach at that school for 30 years, and I actually was the head wrestling coach at Abbotsford 1 year in 1983 and 84. In fact, my first match I was ever a head coach was in this very gym against Athens. I once told Coach Wagner that I actually should get some credit for that first state team championship, because if I had to come in here and beat them with my team, they'd have been so demoralized it would have ruined the whole season. But instead, I got beat 50-something to 2, and we were damn lucky to get the 2. But enough about me, because I really want to talk about Brad. Please realize it's been 40 years since we last wrestled together for Athens, and it's hard to recall a lot of things as well as the details, but as a lifelong educator, I always tell my students when they give out information, they need to cite their source. Mrs. Borky would be proud of me for that. So I'm telling you right now, the source is me. These are my stories, and I'm sticking to them. I'm not sure when Brad and I first met. I'm sure it was through our older brothers who were classmates. We also rode the same bus, went to the same church, went to catechism together. My brothers and I hunted with the Ellenbeckers, and of course we played the same sports. I think our friendship strengthened when Brad joined the wrestling team as a freshman. He wrestled 105, I wrestled at 112, so obviously we were practice partners very often. We also were in Madison that same year to see Pat Switlig win Athens' first state championship. Throughout high school, I was always a little bit bigger than Brad, but he was always better. That trend went beyond high school, as I remember we once met either during or slightly after college in the finals of an old-timers wrestling tournament. I can't even remember where it was, but I do remember we were tied 1-1 at the end of 3 periods. Well, if you ever wrestled in an old-timers tournament, you know those things can make you pretty thirsty. So when the official said we were going to start overtime, Brad and I looked at each other and agreed that we had, as much as we had wrestled each other in our lives, we didn't need to spend any more time doing that. And getting to the local watering hole was, as soon as possible, was a much higher priority. So we told the official, flip the disc to determine the winner, and of course, Brad won the flip. But I will take this opportunity to tell you about one time where I think I used my wrestling skills better than Brad. We were shingling Floyd Gill's barn, and our scaffolding collapsed right after my brother Bruce yelled for us to come down for lunch. It wasn't the way we expected to come down, but it certainly was the quickest. Anyway, as I was sliding off the roof and I saw the ground approaching at a fast rate, my only thought was to hit with my feet first. I saw the ground, but being a wrestler, not a gymnast, I knew I wasn't going to stick that landing. So when my feet struck the pile of old wooden fence posts, my wrestling instincts kicked in. So I cleared the arm, tucked the chin, rolled across the shoulders, came up on my feet like a cat. And 1 point escape with no damage except some deep scratches. Well, then I looked back and I saw Brad was face planted in the ground. And being concerned for his well-being, I started calling to him. I said, Brad, are you okay? No answer. Brad, are you okay? No answer. So I'm starting to worry, but then I see him slowly start to raise his head, and he looks up at me and he says, I just fell off an effing roof. What do you think? So I processed that question and concluded if he's swearing at me, he may not be happy, but I think he's okay. But now, back to the more standard application of wrestling. Before Brad, most Athens wrestlers followed the traditional path to success. Pay your dues by spending a couple of years at the JV level and then contribute to the varsity as an upperclassman. Some of us made the varsity as freshmen, including myself, but we were usually in the lower weights, and we considered winning about half our matches to be a successful year. But Brad broke that mindset. He not only made the varsity as a freshman, but experienced success at a high level immediately, as his 4 conference championships and 2 trips to state, an extremely tough conference to test to. That first trip to state, too, was also unclassed as a sophomore. He set the precedence for many Athens wrestlers to follow, such as Bob List, Craig Underwood, who's here, good to see Craig, Jeremy Brumke, Mike Zingowich, the Angies, the Notskis, and many more I apologize for not mentioning, who all won immediately at the varsity level as freshmen. And Brad was also probably the first Athens wrestler that you would classify as a technician. While most of us relied on good fundamentals and good conditioning, Brad took the technique to another level. Before Brad, most of us thought a duck under was what you did when you came to a fence while hunting. It was too high to get over, you duck under. And if you think the duck under threw us for a loop, just imagine what went through our minds when Brad told us he was going to practice the high crotch on us. Anyway, because I was usually a weight class or 2 heavier than Brad, I actually got to watch Brad apply his technique against some of his best opponents, where many of his teammates didn't, because Coach Wagner, wouldn't let us be in the gym during tournaments until slightly before our matches. I think it strengthened our wrestling and personal connection because we actually were able to cheer for each other and then talk about our matches after the tournament. And Brad made some of his toughest matches look very easy, even though all of us who were in the wrestling room know how hard he and the rest of us worked to get to that level. For the sake of time, I won't get into all the work we did both during and out of season. You know, in seasons, we sometimes practice or worked out twice a day to maintain our weight and perfect our technique. During the off season, we were practicing on the old horsehair mats in our basements or attics, and went to tournaments in Lakeland, Bloomer, Stevens Point, wherever we could find one, and of course we attended the infamous Clintonville wrestling camp. But it was also a lot of fun, and we made some very memorable moments both on and off the mat, and those stories are for another time. And then here. But of course, sometimes it wasn't always fun. Practicing hard and starving can lead to some trying times. I remember we had to talk Brad off the ledge at least once when he was going to hang it up because the work and sacrifice that he was making. Because of the work and sacrifice he was making to accomplish his goals. Any of us who have wrestled have probably been there, and mine I know came in my freshman year in college. And that's when coaches and teammates have to be there to make you realize that it will be worth it. I gave a graduation speech a couple of years ago with the theme, there comes a time when it's all worth it. And I talked to my graduates that success and glory doesn't come without work, perseverance, discipline, and sacrifice. Brad, I know you did everything I just described, and this evening I also believe you know it was all worth it. I love you, man. Couldn't be happier for you. Can't think of anyone more deserving of this honor. Congratulations.
Now we're going to do the presentation of the plaque. Brad Ellenbecker, for all that you have done for Athens Wrestling, on behalf of the Athens Youth Wrestling Club, it is our pleasure to present you a plaque for your induction into the Athens Wrestling Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Steal this speech. He left it here, obviously, for me. I'm sure we'll pull it out, or I'll pull it out when we're sitting on a boat up in northern Minnesota, hitting some bass and some walleye and maybe a few bottles. That'll be a part of it. I put my notes on my phone, and I got a new phone, and the only way it opens is with my eyes. So I don't want to keep doing this to you. So I'm going to try and recall my notes just from memory. And the older I get, obviously, the less that memory works. So I hope I can do justice to this. You know, this starts with a lot of thank yous. And my wife and I were driving up here today, and my phone is in its docked on the windshield, and I get a call from a friend of mine named Mark Johnson. You guys might not know that name. Mark Johnson was a two-time national champion and silver medalist. And he and I have been friends for 20 years. And he called me, and this is a guy that got his entrance into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and his alma mater, Michigan University. He's in their Hall of Fame, and he's calling me about the Athens High School Hall of Fame and telling me how wonderful that was and how proud I should be. So that's where I'll start this. So a lot of thanks for the people that aren't here. And I know there's a lot, I thank you for all the people that are here. Buddha, I just saw you, thank you. So there's a lot of great people here that aren't here that I need to recognize, my mom being first. She made the greatest grape jelly and cheese sandwiches. They became infamous for our wrestling squad. Even Buddha would talk about those. you guys need to go get these sandwiches made so when we're at tournaments, you got a lot of energy. And my mom made the greatest sandwiches. Thanks for my dad for being here tonight and for attending all those matches. Going to, milking those cows early so you can get there on time to really be there. I'm sorry I didn't win the state tournament my senior year, your birthday. I'll never forget it. So it was maybe hard on both of us, I don't know. My oldest brother, Randy, who Barry alluded to, he's the one who took us to the state tournament to watch Pat wrestle. And I remember sitting in the stands, and I can even tell you what we were holding. We were each holding one of those little ice cream things. Remember, we just got done losing weight for, 12 weeks. We would tell you that we were starving. We probably didn't starve, but we were eating ice cream, and we were watching Pat wrestle. And lo and behold, this guy wins the state tournament from Little Athens. No class system. What a great accomplishment. And I know I looked at him and I said, we're coming back, but we're going to be on the mat next time. So that's what started it. I could go back further to tell you that what really started it was that gymnasium and how horrible of a basketball player I was. I fouled out of every game in 5th and 6th grade, and I don't know who told me. It could have been, I'm sure it was one of my friends, you might want to try wrestling. So I did, and just great memories. From my brother Randy taking us to that tournament, my brother Jeff, who was great inspiration to me, always challenging me, always forcing me to think differently, and really was an inspiration to the days when he wrestled. My brother Todd, who's not here, who forced me to be a better wrestler because he was 2 weight classes higher than me. And there was no way in the world I was going to ever lose to him. There was too much pride. My brother Mitch is here tonight. Thanks for being here, Mitch. Mitch was the little wiggle worm as a kid. And we wrestled him. He probably didn't know we were wrestling him as a little kid. He always just screamed that he thought we were smothering him. So those were the stories. My 3 sisters, whose sons all wrestled for Athens. And if you can imagine those screams in the stands, those crazy sisters of mine, it was just pleasure and so thankful that you're here. The list goes on. Barry, Pat Harding, 2 of my primary wrestling compadres. We wrestled a lot of matches. I'm assuming we wrestled thousands of matches. The horsehair mats in his basement, and when we say horsehair mats, these are mats filled with horse's hair. They were hard. They were not fun to be on. They stunk. But they played a part in the history of this sport, and they were on this floor at one time or another. So those were great memories, and I owe a lot to Barry and Pat, along with a lot of great teammates along the ways. And I want to try to recognize a lot of them, and I know, I think we got a match yet tonight. So Adam or Chad, whoever said I can fill the air, I'll try and do my best here. So I want to recognize the Redmond brothers, my cousins, who Donnie was instrumental in getting me to practice because I didn't have a car and there was no way for me to get there any other way. So that was really important, obviously. As I was introducing some of the names and places or people on this history wall here, Rick Schneeweis and Paul Schreiber and Pat Switlik, Gary Switlik, who was one of my most greatest friends and a guy that would give you the shirt off his back and bust your chops every day in practice. I love that part of him. Gosh, the list goes on. Bobby Liss, who I really never wrestled in practice. I don't know if Bobby's here tonight. I didn't see him. So we'll tell the story. So the real reason why Bobby and I never wrestled, and Bobby was a lighter weight class than I was, but the reality was Bobby had a superstition. And Clarence, I don't know if you know this about your son, but he was afraid to wash his jock. He thought his victories were in his job. Why would any of us want to wrestle Bobby Liss? And as Barry stated, these are our stories and they're true. We're sticking to them. So there's guys like Bobby Liss. There's certainly Mike Zenner and Gary Zettler. These are names some of you may know, some of you might not know those folks, but great friends and great competitors for me. Dale Wisniewski, Dan Switlick, gosh, Ronnie Nowacki's here tonight. I saw him earlier. Ronnie, I know when I was a 132 pounder that I wrestled you in practice. I know I did, and I hope I did service to my weight class at that time, as you were the heavyweight. So Jeff Baltz, I don't want to forget about that name. Jeff was our 85 pounder that year. And it's certainly many names. Those Stu Bergman, who's no longer with us. Certainly a teammate of ours and two-time conference champ. So great competition. So I'm going to close this with just a couple more thoughts. So I travel a lot in my job. I travel almost every week around the country, and I was in South Carolina, and it was morning. I was having coffee with a colleague of mine, and we're walking out of this coffee shop, and there's a car that had just parked in the parking lot, and there's Wisconsin plates on this van, and 4 or 5 people get out of this van, and my buddy, I was telling him all these stories. This Athens wrestling team, there's great tradition, and he thought I was blowing smoke, and so he saw the plates, saw the folks wearing Green Bay Packer equipment or a paraphernalia, and so my buddy looks at me. He says, "Hey, we got a few live ones here." And so he says, "Hey, my buddy here is from Wisconsin. Well, maybe you know him." He's joking. And says, "Oh yeah, where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Athens." Those 4 people looked at each other. Those guys have been kicking our ass for 20 years. That was in South Carolina. His jaw dropped. He just couldn't believe it. And I said, when you have a tradition, it matters. So that's really one of my favorite stories after all the stories that I could put into 4 years of wrestling. And it's interesting. I know a lot of you here tonight. You love this sport. I love this sport. But it's more about the people. It's more about the friendships, the teams. Just the character of the people. And Buddha, you started all that a long time ago. I'm really, really thankful for that. So thank you.
I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for coming tonight and making this such a special event. Members of the school district, thanks for your help for setting this up. All the alumni that are here to help support, thank you. And the inductees, friends and family, thank you very much for showing up tonight. On Friday, January 18th and January 19th, on that Saturday, we have our middle school and youth wrestling tournament. Those tournaments help make this stuff possible, where we can present awards and induct people into the Hall of Fame. So if you would like to come and watch and help support or help us out in any way, we would definitely take that help. Nobody likes to clean up, so if you just want to come at the end and help clean up, I'll let you sign up right now. Our wrestling club drawing will also be held that Saturday, January 19th. We have $50 tickets available. This is a fundraiser for the high school wrestlers. It helps them with tournament offset costs and new equipment, new apparel. So if you are interested in one of those, see a member of the Youth Wrestling Club or the wrestling club itself. And last but not least, we have 20 minutes before the duel starts, so we have plenty of time. There will be a reception at Landmark Bar tonight after the duel meet. So if you want to come and talk some good wrestling or make up stories, nobody's going to care. So thank you once again for coming, and let's have one more last round for the newest Hall of Fame inductees.